Good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to get on and talk to everybody tonight about the Social Security Act and see if we can't destroy it politically. The Social Security Act itself is listed in Title 42 of the United States Code, which is the public health and welfare. And before we get started on the Social Security Act, I want to point out to people that Title 42 is also the code in which we find the access for civil rights action for deprivation of rights under Section 1983. Well, what does that have to do with welfare? What does civil action for deprivation of rights have to do with the public health and welfare? Well, we're going to take a peek at the U.S. Constitution, the preamble, wherein it states, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." So it starts out with "We the people of the United States" and ends with this Constitution for the United States of America. And in there it speaks about promoting the general welfare. So when we look at the Constitutional Dictionary to see what welfare means, the definition of welfare there is a noun, and it means health, happiness, or prosperity, well-being. Not well person, not health, happiness, and profit. Health, happiness, or prosperity, well-being. So, that is why we have the civil action for deprivation of rights in the public health and welfare. Because anytime that they are trespassing your health, happiness, or welfare, they are trespassing upon your right to live, your right to breathe, your right to live the way you wish, the right to live according to your natural environment, the laws of nature. Okay? So just so everybody comprehends that, the civil action for deprivation of rights is in the public health and welfare Title 42 of the United States Code, because it's uniform with the Constitution. Okay, now we got that out of the way. Now we're going to go to Title 42 of the United States Code, Health and Welfare title. When we talk about the Social Security Act, it resides between sections 3001 to 1399. And within that section, at section 410, we talk about definitions relating to employment. What is employment? Employment. The term employment means any service performed, and you can read this section. This is quite a lengthy section, and it gives you all the different, notice it says definitions relating to employment. And so throughout the entire thing, they're going to have a lot of these blue highlighted underlined words that you can click on and open Windows and find out what they mean. Right here, the first one in this very first section, it says contract is a blue line highlighted word. And we're going to take a look at that. It says contract for purposes of this section. And section 1396A(e)(2)(a) of this title. In the case of the state of New Jersey, the term contract shall be deemed to include an undertaking by the state agency in the state plan under this subchapter to operate a program meeting all requirements of this subsection. And if you go on or read along, it doesn't say anything else. Yeah, it doesn't say anything else in regards to any other state, but it specifically mentions the state of New Jersey. So why does it do that? We have to think about this stuff. Why is it mentioning specifically of this title, in the case of the state of New Jersey, the term contract shall be deemed to include an undertaking by the state agency? What they're saying is, in this case, or in the case of the state of New Jersey, so in this case of the state of Iowa, it would be the Iowa State Agency and not the New Jersey State Agency. That's what they're referencing here. In the state plan under this subchapter, to operate a program meeting all requirements of this subsection. To operate a program. What is to operate and what is a program? Operate is a commercial action. Program is that of a political subdivision. And we're going to get onto that here next. But anyway, section, again, 410 of Title 42 talks about definitions relating to employment. And like I said, it's a long section, but it gives you a lot of different things that you can click on to find out what they mean in regards to employment. And I want everybody to comprehend, as far as I know, employment regards to nothing but political bodies, political subdivisions. Employment is a financial term for a commercial fiat currency. Okay? So, next one. When we go to Title 42 of the U.S. Code, 654, State Plan for Child and Spousal Support. Okay? State Plan for Child and Spousal Support. And it starts off right at the beginning, a state plan for child and spousal support. Whose plan is it? Is it yours? Did you already have a plan in place? Do you already have a guide that you follow that says, as long as you follow my way, you shall be blameless? Go forth and prosper and be abundant? Number 1, provide that it shall be in effect in all political subdivisions of the state. And again, we're talking about blue highline or underline highlighted descriptions here, or tags that you can click on. And when it says political subdivision, we click on political subdivision and it says and for the purpose of this subsection, the term general retirement, it's got some other descriptions. We go down to political subdivision. The term political subdivision includes an instrumentality of 1, a state, 2, one or more political subdivisions of a state, or 3, a state and one or more of its political subdivisions. So the term political subdivision itself includes political subdivisions or states and are an instrumentality of. What is an instrument? It is a financial instrument. It is a commercial fiat instrument, a debt instrument, a debt note. Period. So, when we look at this section 654, State Plan for Child and Spousal Support, we go on to read that it's to provide for financial participation by the state. Are you the state? Does it provide for the financial participation of yourself? Or do you have to cooperate and agree to participate? Are you a part of that political subdivision thereof? Well, when we look at all those definitions about employment, hopefully, if you read it the way I do, You comprehend that even McDonald's is a political subdivision of the United States. And that's why when you go get a job, a job, at McDonald's and they have you fill out an application, they ask you for your nationality. Are you a United States citizen? Are you allowed to work within the United States? This is very specific wording by people that portray themselves as private entities, yet they're part of a political subdivision of the United States corporate company. So when you get a job, you become part of the political subdivision. Particularly if you have a Social Security number and are claiming to be a United States citizen. The claim to be a United States citizen without clarifying that you are the authorized representative and card holder of the Social Security account separate from both entities as authorized representative is a failure on your part to assert your proper capacity as the live man, as representative, and not part of the political subdivision itself. The whole political subdivision is nothing but persons. Okay, and then it says 3, to provide for the establishment or designation of a single and separate organizational unit which meets such staffing and organizational requirements as the secretary may, by regulation, prescribe within the state to administer the plan. 4, provide that the state will provide service relating to the establishment of paternity or establishment, modification, or enforcement of child support obligations as appropriate under the plan with respect to And it's got some more. You can read that. It's a little bit longer section. But the part I want to talk to you about here now is B. We're going to go on to the next section in regards to a state plan for child and spousal support must 1, 2, 3, 4. 4B says enforce any support obligation established with respect to a child with respect to whom the state provides services under the plan or the custodial parent of such a child. And that's it. So all you non-custodial fathers, they have no enforcement. Their part B here is to enforce any obligation established with respect to. When we click on obligation, for the purpose of this subsection, the term obligation means an established duty. An established duty. Whether or not fixed, arising from an express or implied contractual grantor, grantee, or licensor-licensee relationship. Just having a Social Security number can imbue that you might be assigned a duty here. And again, I'm trying to enforce upon people to start doing your own thinking, to discern this stuff for yourself. This is the Social Security Administration is purely medical insurance for government employees. For a fee-based or similar relationship from statute or regulation or from the retention of an overpayment. And that's the same principle when you're disputing a creditor, and the credit bureau has your stuff all out there on public, and you make some kind of payment thinking that it's going to clear it off the record. No, it just renews it on the record. Now it's going to stay on the record for another 7 years. They've reattached the obligation. It's the same thing here with child support. If you make a payment, you're attaching the obligation. You're accepting the assignment of the duty to pay. Now you have to clarify, oops, I made an error. I'm not the one that's supposed to pay. My person is supposed to make the payment, as I am the drawer of the payment. Okay. Number 5. This is where we get the assignment part. Provided that A, in any case in which support payments are collected for an individual with respect to whom an assignment pursuant to Section 608A3 of this title is effective. So, pursuant to 608A3 of this title, when we click on that, no assistance for families not assigning certain support rights to the state. No assistance for families not assigning certain support rights to the state. Have you assigned support rights to the state? I suggest you people start asking these questions. If I have mistakenly assigned support rights to the state, that would be an error. I rescind my signature from any and all such contracts that would state such cooperative agreement. And it says, a state to which a grant is made under Section 603 of this title shall require, as a condition of paying assistance to a family under the state program funded under this part, that a member of the family assigned to the state any right the family member may have on behalf of the family member or of any other person for whom the family member has applied for receiving such assistance. So the mom that applied for welfare assigns support rights to the state for collection purposes. The state has no right to enforce those collections upon another man, a non-custodial parent, who is not within that cooperative agreement known as a Title 4D contract for welfare assistance. If your father is out there working, he's not getting welfare, then he's not a cooperative agent in that contract. It's the mom that's applied for the welfare. So think about this stuff, people. Let's see. Such payments shall be made to the state for distribution pursuant to Section 657 of this title. Pursuant to 657 of this title, distribution of collected support. Now again, you're not going to find anywhere in this Social Security section any right of enforcement conferred by executive branch of government. What you see is a conferring of the administration of the procedures. But there are no procedures for enforcement of collection. It's all fraud. Every last bit of it. And it's all done because you got a Social Security account. You didn't clarify that you're not of this political subdivision, but you have a person to operate in it. Very distinct in the way this is said. I am not part of the political subdivision, but I was granted a person to operate in it through the Social Security Administration Certificate of Live Birth, qualifying me as an authorized representative. And that political subdivision is a commercial subdivision run by the Uniform Commercial Codes, which in it state that I'm not liable on the instrument for the person named in the instrument. Let's get this shit cleared up, guys. And again, this distribution of collected support, we go back, we don't see anything for enforcement. Pursuant to for distribution pursuant to section 657 of this title, and shall not be paid directly to the family. And will not be paid directly to the family. When it comes to endorsing your checks, I strongly advise endorsing them with the 12 USC 411. 12 USC 411 is the obligation commerce clause in the Constitution, and 12 USC 411 refers to that commerce clause, and it's an obligation of the United States to compensate a man for his fair labor. And because they've used a fiat system that has no intrinsic value in the notes themselves, they have to give you, when you get disbursements of those Federal Reserve notes through a check, you're supposed to endorse that check for compensation, not in Federal Reserve notes, but rather in substance. And so when you endorse that, even though they give you Federal Reserve notes back, it's considered as substantive value now. They've given you, even though they're not giving you gold, and they're never going to. It's just a matter of principle concept for ledgering purposes, so that you can make your claim that you've attained so much worth of gold in your lifetime that somebody else owes you, and that belongs in your estate. So that if any time you pass that estate on, and any time in the future that gold is receivable, you can then collect it. That's there's no way to collect it otherwise. It's just like Canada discontinuing their agreement with the IMF. Neither party suffers detriment in canceling that contract. So the Canadian government doesn't owe the IMF. It just hands them back their currency, their fiat currency. And the IMF doesn't owe Canada because they were the servicer. They just quit their service. That's all it is. So think about this, tough people. And when it comes to this state, this political subdivision, we talk about state. And in here it gives us the definition of state right after it says political subdivision. Let me see here. State, the term, this is under 42 USC section 27. And this is so this is before the Social Security Act. But watch how it states it. 42 is the chapter. Okay, chapter 42 of the U.S. Code. It's called the title, it's chapter. The term state and states as used in this chapter shall be held to include the District of Columbia. Okay, so anytime they use state in this chapter in regards to Social Security, health and welfare benefits, or anything like that, child support, they're always talking about a state that includes the District of Columbia. And when we look at the word include, it includes only what's after it. So every time they use state in here, they're talking about District of Columbia. Even when they use in the state of New Jersey. The state program is the District of Columbia program in the state of New Jersey. See how this is working? So you got to think about this stuff, people, and realize, unless you're part of that political subdivision of the District of Columbia, specifically the United States, District of Columbia is a political subdivision, and United States is located in District of Columbia. Look up UCC 9-307. It says location of debtor. When you look up location of debtor, subsection H, it says H, United States is located in District of Columbia. So now we have a semblance of how to put this together. The United States is in the District of Columbia, and District of Columbia is what is included in the term state for Title 42 of the United States Code. Yes, UCC 9-307. I'm pretty sure of it. Let me double check. Yep, UCC 9-308 or 307. It says location of debtor. And when you go down to section H, it says location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Title 28 of the United States Code, section 3002. United States is not a federal government. It is a corporation located in District of Columbia. District of Columbia is a bordered section of 10 square miles known as a political subdivision. And the United States is its corporation that operates within all states as the state. So think about this, guys, gals, everybody. It's all related to the Social Security account, again, whereby you've been assigned as authorized representative, and then the state is presuming that they somehow have to have an assignment of duty from a non-custodial parent to make a support payment and be able to enforce it. And they're using this against you to do that. That's why it's important to comprehend the differences in the words. People and person are not the same. Of course, state and state isn't always the same. So we have to ask for points of clarification. We have to look this stuff up and comprehend that when they say that the state is to participate, or the custodial parent assigns right of enforcement, we got to realize they're not talking about us at all. Yes, commercial law, Junart. All law is commercial. All crimes are commercial. And in regards to the way it works here in the United States, you've got a federal government that has a contract on the international sale of goods on the international side, and then internally, through their own political subdivision, they run commercial codes in order for each state to be able to contract with other states within the federal government, within the Americas. And they also have to be able to contract with the federal government on the basis of imports and exports alone. Just on that alone, they have to be able to contract with that federal government, because that federal government is the governing body on the contracts on the international sale of goods. Whereas each state technically has the right to have contracts on the international sale of goods, but we have states that don't have the Admiralty Maritime direct access because they're landlocked states. There's no way for another national of a different country to be able to come in and access the internal countries within the United States boundaries, within the American boundaries here. So we have states that run commercial codes, and they're all to be uniform, and that's the Uniform Commercial Code. It was established a long time ago millennia ago, but today we know it as the Uniform Commercial Code since 1951, I believe, is when it was actually constructed and written down on paper as a uniform basis for all states to follow. And that's what your state statutes are. They're actually contracts. I don't know of any state that actually lists the UCC itself. The UCC itself is bound up through the federal government, and then the states are to employ their statutes according to that Uniform Commercial Code. And we see the contractual nexus here in Title 48 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 52.212-5, where it says, and I quote again, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders - commercial item. Correct. We have the access to the Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction because of the UCC formatted through the federal government, because they hold the contract on the international sale of goods, and then each state holds a contract with the federal government. Whereas each state could technically have a contract on the international sale of goods themselves. But to make everything uniform throughout the 50 states, Daddy steps in and says, no, we're not going to allow you to do that, because if you find a better way to do it, then the rest of the states will want to do it, and it subverts our position to do it for you. Think about this stuff, people. Yes, 48 Code of Federal Regulations, 42.212, or excuse me, Part 52. Here, I'll text it into you, Junart. There you go, brother. That's what you want to look up. But anyway, again, I want to explain to you the only enforcement they have is an assignment of support rights through those who apply. And so when they're going after you non-custodial fathers, they have no enforcement. They have no judicial conference of enforcement. They can't do that. It's a cooperative agreement, and you have to agree to cooperate with them. If you don't agree to cooperate, then they can't just assert that, well, Mom needs money and she gave us assignment of enforcement or support rights, so we got to enforce it. No, she gave you assignment of support rights. Now, unless you have some kind of assignment of enforcement rights, that would be different. But we don't see that in the Social Security Act anywhere. We don't see enforcement rights anywhere in the United States Code, period. Because they have no right to enforce this upon anybody except those who apply. The Social Security application is fraud. It does not declare that you're applying as for a federal position of employment. It does not clarify things that need to be clarified so that one can discern for themselves whether it is a good deal to agree to. And so when they don't do that, and we make unwitting, unknowing, and unintentional agreements, they are retractable. Correct. Because see, when you fill out a Social Security application, one of the first things they do at the age of 18 is they always assert two things: that you need a Social Security account for employment purposes, and that you need a driver's license in order to get a job or some kind of ID. You need a Social Security account, some kind of state ID. Well, that state ID is purporting that you're part of the political subdivision. What is the political subdivision of the United States? Commerce. That's its views on politics. Commercial. Has nothing to do with your rights, has nothing to do with your land, has nothing to do with anything but commercial activity to get everything they possibly can get their grubby hands on for the people that are operating. Think about this stuff, people. They have absolutely no right of enforcement. Anytime you look up the purpose, it's going to tell you that there's some kind of economic substance behind their purpose. Not your rights. Their purpose isn't to support your rights. That's not what I wanted. Let's see here. Title 42 of the United States Code, Chapter 1, the Public Health Services, Subchapter 1, within Chapter 1, says generally. And when we look under generally, I'm going to see if I can get a shot of this in here. And it's going to be backwards for you, I think. But let me see here. See if I can turn this camera around here real quick. There we go. And so we can see there. Everything in there says repealed, repealed, repealed until you get down. It says isolation of civilians for protection of military, air, and naval forces. And then right here, definitions. The terms state and states as used in this chapter shall be held to include the District of Columbia. It means it excludes everything else. That means it excludes everything else. It means only District of Columbia. District of Columbia is simply a 10 square mile area, which is the home of the United States. And the United States is a corporation. And if you're not a part of that political subdivision, then they have no right of enforcement. Period. Period. So think about this stuff, guys. Yeah, Gunnar Sadoy makes a very good point. When it comes to the passports, there's a number underneath the picture that looks a lot like your Social Security number or driver's license number, and you can use that on your medical forms, your medical insurance forms. That's your passport number. It's just as valid as when they ask for your driver's license number, Social Security number. That's what they're doing when they ask for the driver's license number today. They're asking for the Social Security number. It's just a different connect. Your states don't no longer use it. They use a different code for it. It's still accessing the Social Security number. Same with that passport. It's still accessing that Social Security number. That's a United States passport. Again, it's part of that political subdivision of the United States, saying that it's a commercial instrument and that you carrying it are performing commerce for the United States. So think about this stuff, people. Authorized representative of what political subdivision, what kind of enforcement rights, what kind of support rights, what kind of assignments. It's all in there, and it's all being done to steal from you. You don't need a Social Security account. If you educate yourself properly and learn this information, you establish yourself as a private member association with a silver surety bond, and establish yourself throughout the communities as that private member, and conduct your affairs accordingly. There are private membership associations were originally established upon private medical associations. Now, if somebody has a right to practice medicine privately, then don't you have the right to practice anything you want privately? Of course. You have the right to practice automotives privately. That would be a good one. So think about this stuff, and there you go. Junior says, Geico asked for what state. In the drop down among the listings, it gave him a listing for Department of State. And he chose Department of State. For what state? For his insurance, for his driver's insurance through Geico. That's funny. I like that. Awesome shit there. Well, anyway, folks, just wanted to hop on real quick and point out some of this stuff is just so blatant and in your face, and all the rest of it doesn't make any difference to you then once you realize it. So start reading this stuff and realize what it's saying and how it applies. So again, like I said, the Public Health and Welfare Title 42 of the United States Code is your Social Security Act between sections 301 and 1399. And then, of course, we also see Section 1983, which is your civil action for deprivation of rights. And we discussed why that's in the health and welfare title. And that's because it's in the Constitution. Promote the general welfare. And the general welfare is the health, happiness, and prosperity. The well-being. Not the well-fiction. The well-being. Think about this stuff, people, and I hope I can help make this stuff easier for you as time goes by. I'm going to get into the Social Security Act some more as well. I got to get together with my brother David Jose and talk about the purpose and that cooperative agreement part again, because the federal the federal government, the state government, the District of Columbia, I don't care who it is, no agency has singularly or collectively any right to enforce any of this entire title. They have no right to enforcement, period, against the objection of either parent. Period. And so when it comes to it, do you have to have a Social Security account? Wouldn't that be against your objection if they forced you to have a Social Security account? Said it's required? I've been told all my life I'm required to have a Social Security account. So think about this stuff, people, and realize it's all fraud. Every last bit of it's dependent upon that fiat currency that has absolutely zero intrinsic value. And like I said, the bonds that they swing around in these courts, they have no value either. Everybody thinks those bonds they've been purchased with Federal Reserve notes. How do you think the Federal Reserve transferred value to those bonds when they have no value in the Federal Reserve notes themselves? Do you think they just magically attached some kind of substance to them? Do you think they, behind closed doors, traded them Federal Reserve notes for diamonds or something? Do you think they magically traded them for gold? Nah. Ain't none of it got any value, and you don't have to agree to something that doesn't have intrinsic value to yourself. I don't hold any value to something that's proven to be fraud. I don't hold any value to something that's proven to destroy families. I don't have any intrinsic value in anything that's detrimental in any way, shape, or form. This entire system is detrimental to you unless you apply as to be part of it. And to be part of it means you have to be part of that political subdivision, which means you have to be a public official performing the acts of public office. Period. That's employment. So when you go out here to McDonald's and you're getting that job application to be employed, are you clarifying that you don't wish to be employed into a political subdivision, that you wish to retain your right independently to be compensated in substance? And therefore, if McDonald's has a contract with that political subdivision, that's fine. But I wish to work for you on a independent contract basis and not be subjected to taxation, contributions to the Social Security Administration, Federal Income or Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and all that, because I'm not part of that political subdivision and I don't want to be part of it. Because when you get that check, you're not going to cash it for Federal Reserve notes. You're going to qualify your signature for substance of value through 12 U.S.C. 411. It's going to be recognized, recorded on the record, recognized, recognizance. That way you can pull it off the record and cognize what it said originally. Think about all this stuff, people. The words, language is what's causing all the problems. If you don't comprehend what's being said, you're going to get confused in all the legislation. So think about this stuff and really put it in your heart to start doing your research so you can start setting up your PMAs, separating yourself from this political subdivision that's got you indoctrinated through public education, propaganda, set up in a sweet seat in cognitive dissonance, so you go home and watch your boob tube and laugh your ass off watching somebody else's miserable life, stuffing your face full of chips and poisons. One or the other. One or the other. Anyway, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. Love you. Have a great night. Bye.